So I'm in the pet store. I'm picking up my animals from the groomer. And this girl who works there, young girl, she looked like she could have been more than maybe 16, 17 years old. She's like, oh, what'd you think of the Olympia? And I'm like thinking, what does this girl know about the Olympia? I mean, she looked like she was athletic, but she wasn't like a body. I mean, she was literally like a teenager, you know. I'm like, well, good, you know, good Olympia. You know, I got, you know, nice to see a changing of the guard, you know, how do you shoot it? She's like, no. I'm talking about, you know, the Mr. Olympia, Bumstead. I'm like, you know, all these young kids know CBUM. Yep. Oh, CBUM. She's like, CBUM. I'm like, wait a second. She thinks that's Mr. Olympia. See, like young kids don't even know who Hadi Chupon is. They think that Bumstead is Mr. Olympia. That's Mr. Olympia.
Max, my son, said the same thing. He goes, you know Mr. Olympia? And I said, yeah, Big Ramy. He said, no, it's CBUM. And you know, I actually wrote a little bit about that in for Muscle and Fitness. Is like, really, who is Mr. Olympia? And actually, Arnold even chimed in and you know, considers that, you know, Mr. Olympia is CBUM because that's the classic iteration of where bodybuilding evolved from, not the fork in the road that he doesn't like. So, you know, in his mind, CBUM is Mr. Olympia. That's where the direction the Olympics should have gone. You know, and a lot of people agree. But see, the thing is, CBUM he's got 13 million followers.
Yeah, crazy.
But unfortunately, among the top 10 of the Mr. Olympia Classic Physique, he's a unicorn. The other guys don't have 10.
No one knows the other guys, right? Exactly.
Right. So he's the only guy that's known versus, you know, the Open. I mean, the whole top 10, every one of those guys has over 1 million followers. So,
well, yeah, but that's just in the bodybuilding community. I don't know if it's necessarily in the real world. I mean, maybe like a Kai Green, you know, has, you know, following. They love this CBUM, though. I will tell you that much. It's the phenomenon is crazy that how much they like this guy, because, you know, he posts like normal pictures, like where he's not even like, you know, flexing, you know, and they relate to him, these kids.
Yeah. And he posts about his personal life, you know, and his problems, his successes, and whatever. Right. So, you know, look, man. I'd interviewed him for Muscle and Fitness. You know, I said, what do you attribute your immense popularity to? And he said, you should ask my mom.
But you know what? No, but you know what?
Great answer. You know,
he doesn't know. He doesn't even know it. Remember when Dana Lynn Bailey was all the craze?
Yep.
I mean, there was no freaking reason why all of a sudden everyone thought that she was the coolest thing. She didn't have the best physique. I mean, she had a good physique. She didn't have the best physique, even though they did crown her Miss Olympia. You know, she's not like one of these girls who does all these like butt shots and all kinds of like glamour shots. She's kind of like a tomboy by her own admission. There was nothing that stuck out particularly about her, other than she was just like, you know, fuck everyone. I don't care. This is who I am. I mean, and that for years, that was like, she was like a rock star, you know?
Well, Rob was, I think, the far more interesting component of the mix. You know, when he was always posting cool shit, you know, souping up his cars and his bikes and his
but they liked her. Her physique is what drew people in. And there was no reason you couldn't come up, if we had to come down with a concept and we would have said, hey, we're going to get this girl who's, you know, she trains hardcore, but she's not really that big. She's kind of like, you know, by her own admission, tomboyish. She likes to play sports and stuff like that. And we're going to make her a superstar in the bodybuilding realm. You'd be like, you're out of your fucking mind. I'm not putting any money behind this.
Dave, I've seen girls at shows that copied her, you know, same asymmetric.
I know, but you don't see it anymore. Now that she doesn't compete anymore and everyone forgot about her, essentially, at least in the hardcore bodybuilding industry. Right. She's more mainstream now. No one's wearing their hair like her anymore, and you don't even hear her name mentioned. So in the social media world, I mean, if you don't, that's why we have to do videos every day, or you don't stay relevant. I mean, if we don't do this, people say, "Who's that guy?" He did videos for 25 years, but he stopped for 3 weeks, and no one knows who he is anymore. You know.
You know, at the expo at the Olympia, when they have their booth, you know, normally the line goes down the wall, around the back, into the bathroom, through the building, out into the parking lot. You know, this year it was not that big, you know. You could
because people forget. I'm telling you. I mean,
Yeah,
she was like, seriously, like I'm talking, people don't know, but rock star.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
She come in, I mean, she did guest posings like at arenas. I mean, she was amazing.
But
You know?
it was crazy. She would come out and she'd raise her hands up in the air. People would go nuts, and I couldn't figure it out. But like I said, they had the cool clothing line at the time,
Right.
and that Rob was always doing the crazy styles. But even the clothing, it wasn't like the clothing was like this, like out of control. It was like the whole concept of like flag nor fail. It was like kind of like everyone felt like, hey, yeah, I get what they're trying to say. It was like a movement almost rather than a visual thing.
I wouldn't say movement. I would say tribe, and people want to belong to a tribe. When they find something that's, attractive, and endearing, they kind of gravitate towards that. And that's really, they did a great job. Rob saw, a lot of potential in her and he maximized it. I thought their clothing line was really cool. I like the writing, as an artist, I really like Rob's style,
Yeah. He's definitely very creative, but it was just the right thing at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You never know. I mean, that's the whole thing, to crack that code, the viral code. Look at the woman who kind of overweight woman sitting in her car. She bought the Chewbacca mask, and she put it on and she was all excited about it. It got like 130 million views. How do you reckon that? I mean,
John, I did a I don't know if you remember when Andreas Frey died recently, the bodybuilder. I didn't even really know him. I mean, aside from like Lee, who competed against him and just reading about him, and he never really competed in the IFBB. He was, he did that PDI show, with Lee and was second to him. This guy died, and I did an obituary for him, a tribute video to him, just so that people would know who he was. That thing got 2 million views. All right. I never did a video that got 2 million views. I don't know why that video got 2 million views. I have no clue. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't like a superstar in bodybuilding. He was just a regular nice guy, who's in the industry. And I couldn't tell you why it got that many hits. So I don't really know sometimes why certain people hit and some people don't. What I do know is, and if you guys are looking to try to start your own, social media presence and YouTube channel, is the surest way to make a living from it and do well is to just be relentless and don't quit. That's what we do at RXMuscle. I don't care who's got more hits and who's got more views on their videos. We've consistently cranked out good original content for now since 2009 here. So it's, what are we going on, 13, 14 years? Yep. And we never stopped. We never worried about what other people were doing. And that's what we kept doing. And we're consistent. So if you look over the course of that 14, 15 years that we've been doing this, I don't think there's anyone else left, John, who would be our competitor at that time. I mean, MD is kind of like a ghostly shell of itself at this point.
Well, you initially said we were the only ones. It really was a cool dynamic because we did have Pro Bodybuilding Weekly with Dan Solomon and Bob Ciccarillo. Right. That was a really good show. And then that was
bodybuilding.com, which is that was one of our competitors.
Right. So I was on their show. They were on our, we went back and forth. You were on their show. Yeah. And that was it. And remember, we had to call into Voice America. We had to
Right. But I'm saying that's when we started with MD. But then when we left MD and we started RXMuscle, it was basically MD, RXMuscle, bodybuildingstills.com still had that the Dan Solomon show. Yep. But then other people other YouTube sensations came about. Right. But they came and they left, and they came. Yep. No one's consistently been there because it's very hard to consistently crank out good content. Mostly the sites that criticize other people and base their success on that usually fizzle out. Because there's a very high burnout on doing that, because it's like, oh my God, I got to find another person to fucking make fun of today, or I got to find another thing. It's very difficult to do that on a regular basis. I would rather put out content where I'm interviewing people, where we're having fun on the after hours show, covering the sport. I could do that all day long in my sleep. I could put out educational stuff. and I'm just a creative guy. But if I had to like every day come up with something, what am I going to come up with now? Who can we make fun of today? Oh, Aaron Singer. We'll make fun of him today. But you know what I'm just saying? It's a tough thing to do on a regular basis, and you do get burnt out. And what happens is a lot of these guys get so popular from doing that then they start going crazy, like the Louis Marcos, and they become like political activists and stuff like that. And then next thing you know, their channel shut down. Vegan Gains, you know, he starts doing porn, and you know, people just lose their minds, I think, doing it. It's very hard. There's not many people who consistently put out content. And you know what? It's not because they're not talented, John. It's because it's just hard to fucking do.
It's hard to do, yeah. Carl Lenore, he's been doing Superhuman. That's really mainstream. It's not.
Yeah. He's more like,
you know, he's been cranking out content for 15 years.
Well, he's a New Yorker, you know, Italian New Yorker there.
He's got work ethic.
Yeah.
You know, and even he said to me, just always go to work. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Like you said, be relentless on, never miss a day's of work. And you have never missed a heavy muscle radio. Even days when we couldn't, you know, be on, we have never missed. There's always been a heavy muscle radio. And I've
had surgeries and stuff like that. But I'll tell you one thing. The one time I almost missed was when I was in Abajania, Brazil. Like on going to see John of God. It was literally God's country to talk about it. There was one little Wi-Fi in the hotel, which was basically like a tent, a pup tent, and you had to be right next to it. And I couldn't do the radio show because I couldn't orchestrate it. But I think at that time, actually, Aaron Singerman was kind of filled in for me on that one, and they called me from. They did a call-in from my cell phone, and I was on. So I didn't technically miss that show, but that was the closest one I almost missed.